Welcome to Heavily Meditated, a podcast celebrating human potential. Meditations, interviews, tools, trainings, and more designed to take you higher. Let's raise the collective consciousness together. All right, now we're getting serious. All right, so hello everyone and welcome to this episode of the Heavily Meditated podcast. I'm Scott Roberts. I'm your host and co-founder of the Heavily Meditated podcast. As always, thank you for joining us today and for being a part of this. I'm super excited to have you all with us today because I'm interviewing Mr. Erickson. Aaron is actually the founder of Mystical Human Adventures. He leads adventure retreats and he does online workshops and trainings. And he's also a master at advanced breath techniques, including bioenergetic breathing, which I had personal experience with and was pretty freaking life-changing. So it was absolutely phenomenal. And then he's also an amazing musician and sound healer. And he just has an absolute great energy about him. Like everywhere he goes, you can see people just absolutely light up and start to smile when they're around him. He just has an infectious energy that makes people happy and energized. And I actually got to spend time with Aaron along with another group of men on a little 10-day adventure that we went on up in Sequoia National Park and Joshua Tree. And just, did a lot of amazing breath work and meditation and ate amazing food while we were there, really nurtured ourselves and ate real, like kings. So it was fantastic. And then, after just Aaron getting to spend time with you and getting to know you, I just feel absolutely that the world needs to know who you are, needs to know what you do, and needs to, spend time with you the way that I got to. So, I'm just excited that you're here today, that you're on the show, and that, our listeners get a chance to fall in love with you. Welcome to the podcast, man.
Oh, Scott, thank you so much, brother. It is so good to be here. And I love you too. It was so wonderful just getting to spend that time together and meeting through our mutual friends and, being out in nature and hiking, camping, and all the conversations were just next level, just discussing consciousness and spirituality and, life itself. And so thank you. It's a real honor to be here today.
Yeah, definitely. It's so great. And I'm really glad that we get to spend the time together and took time to get away from our normal lives and get out and really kind of, recreate ourselves, and since I've got back, I've already just, developed a new gusto for my breath practice that I've always had, but just, your techniques and, the things that you shared with us have really just re-energized me and really got me dedicated to it again. And just learning how to really manage and boost my energy levels so I can be more productive. It's been great. So always important to get away and have time to recreate or recreate ourselves. So fantastic.
Yes, I like that.
Yeah. Well, so we'll get started a little bit with just some about your background, so that our listeners can get to know you, who you are, kind of a little bit about your story, and the work that you do. I always like to say, just start at birth and move quickly forward.
Yeah. All right. So let's see. I'm from the South Florida area. A lot of my family is from Wisconsin. I come from a huge family. My grandparents had 17 kids. So my mom is like number 9. And those 17 had 65 grandkids who have 68 great grandkids. And the grandparents are still alive in their 90s, so we have this huge family tree. So that was really cool. But, getting to go to Wisconsin every summer for a couple of months just got me exposed to nature, which I know a lot of people who grow up in South Florida don't really get. And so that was a real highlight, I think, for me growing up. But I've always been empathic. So even as a kid, I really had a sensitivity, and I was a bit of an introvert and shy, and just, I felt everything, and it was so overwhelming for me, So I think that, I accumulated a lot of impressions from feeling everybody's mental, emotional, a lot, even things that were unsaid, just were influencing and affecting and overwhelming me. So being in a big group of people, I was always just like, oh my God, like what's going on here? Because, this big family, and then, feeling all these things, and all of them, they're really extroverted and really loud, and they just are a rowdy bunch and, you know, fun bunch. But I was just like, holy shit, like what is going on, you know? So I think that, like, kind of through my, you know, teenage years and early 20s, I was still trying to really figure it all out. But luckily for me, when I was 18, I found, or actually when I was 17, I found yoga. And I started to do yoga, and I had a wonderful teacher. Actually, I just happened to land into Leslie Glickman. She's in South Florida, and she does the yoga journey and has a great organization down there. Every New Year's Eve, she does a big event, which they have like 4,000 people come out and do a yoga class New Year's Day morning and stuff. So she's a real leader in the community. But anyhow, and with her class, it was power yoga, but just through doing the physical asanas and taking the shavasana at the end, you know, and she would interject beautiful philosophy and stuff in there. But I started to realize, you know, I did a lot of sports, I did a lot of other styles of athletics, but I was so tight. And the meditation, the breathing, it made me feel so relaxed and peaceful. It was like I got a little reprieve from, you know, the incessant mind, the overstimulation of our society and culture. So that stuck with me as like something I wanted to work on, something that I wanted to adopt into my life. And so I really dedicated myself to going to class like 3 days a week, probably their 90-minute classes. And in 2 years' time, I started noticing that already that started to shift my values. It started to shift which people I wanted to hang out with, which places I wanted to go, what kind of food I wanted to eat. I just developed more self-awareness and sensitivity through the practice. And so it wasn't a super meditative or super spiritual practice, but it's the science of yoga, which really just through the stretching, breathing, and the shavasana and that type of you know, exposure, it was really speaking to a part of me that needed that nurturing. And so it lit it up. Then I found massage therapy, and you know, I'd always been, one of my love languages was touch. And so I was an affectionate kind of person, whether it was friends, family, I just always like put my hand on a shoulder, whatever. And I grew up, my family, we did massages for each other and stuff. So it was really natural, you know. And when I got into massage school, I feel so fortunate that one of my great spiritual teachers, he was the instructor there. And I met him at 18 years old. His name is Robert Flash Gordon. So Flash Gordon, we call him Flash, you know. So really, really cool guy who he shared a lot of also my personal interests. Like, because I've always been into extreme sports, surfing, skydiving. You know, I was on swim team, and he was a lifeguard and a paramedic and other things as well, you know, so it was really cool. We had a personal connection, but the influence of his presence and the open, big, beautiful, open heart, and the really like clear clarity on what is important and what values. And so when I got into that massage school, it was really, you know, you study the anatomy, you study, you know, also alternative, like Chinese medicine, you study a lot of these other modalities, healing modalities. And so it really got those gears turning. And while I was there, they had a lama from India, which is kind of like a high priest from India, come in and initiate us into meditation. So my first meditation experience, we're sitting in a group, and, you know, it wasn't very long, but what I noticed was as I attuned to the energy, I could feel like a swirling in the crown chakra of my head. And it was really intense and very present. So I at the end, I asked him about it, and he said, wow, that's very auspicious, because that normally doesn't happen your first meditation. He's like, so there was something there. So that really intrigued me. But I knew that it was hard to get my mind to be quiet. And so when I got my first apartment, and, you know, I was the first time in my life where I was alone, because I always had brothers, family, had all these people around, always. So it was like, when I finally am sitting there in this big open place, and I'm like, wow, like my first inclination was to invite all these people over. Like, I got to have a party, I got to do something. Like, where's everybody, you know? So then I finally I picked up guitar, I started doing art, and I started meditation. And so I would sit down with myself, and I would just try to create a little bit of an opening in my mind, you know, and I would sit there and just and it was like willpower, because I didn't have any techniques really, aside from a little bit of yoga, maybe some like ujjayi breath, but that was about it. So 45 minutes of determination would get me like one little, maybe 30-second to 1 minute gap between my thought stream, you know? And I was like, that's it. I found it. I got a little gap. It was like there was nothing happening in my mind. I was like, wow. And so as I kept doing it, I kind of like, it's like trodden down a pathway, a neurocorrelate in your mind, to where I started gaining access a little quicker. Maybe instead of 45 minutes, it was 30 minutes. And then it started to 20. And then pretty soon I could get there a lot easier. And I had taken a job at a chiropractic office. And one of my clients who came in, and they say, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And so this was like one of those beautiful synchronicities that the universe provided for me. And so one of my clients who came in, he had been initiated into Siddha Yoga and had spent over 30 years studying under Swami Muktananda. And but his background, he was a fourth generation Christian Science healer practitioner. His, fourth generation, so his father is, and it just goes back through his family line. So they're all like, and they call it the metaphysical Christianity, because they're really using the science of their consciousness to shift and change reality and change their state and everything. So he had that as an upbringing, but already at like 12 years old had his first out-of-body experience, and then got into yoga really intensively, like Raja Yoga, Patanjali Yoga Sutras, and studying many of the different scriptural books. But between 12 and 16, he was doing constant out-of-body practice and had so many different otherworldly experiences. I think at 18, he was initiated as a bodhisattva in the Buddhist tradition. And then he, when he finally met Swami Muktananda and had received the Shaktipat, he was initiated over time as a meditation instructor. But he had spent 7 years as a renunciate, and done a lot of intensive disciplines. So when I met him, I was probably 21 or so, and he and I just like, it was like an immediate bond. Like we were just like, I was so interested. He was a wealth of knowledge, and I just was like a sponge, and I just wanted to know it all. I was like asking questions. And so we decided to meet up for coffee. And at the time I still drank coffee. And so we went and we were, meeting up at Starbucks. And then eventually he was coming over to my place, and he started bringing me books to the chiropractic office. So our first book I got was The Science of Yoga, the Patanjali Yoga Sutras. By I.K. Tiamni, which there's different translations and commentaries, and that was a really good one.
Yeah.
But so we started doing practice for 1 year intensive, 5 days a week, 6-hour sessions. So he would come up, and really at that point, I dedicated my life. I had been through a recent heartbreak and breakup. And so I was really like, you know what, I just want to focus on myself. I was already doing my yoga, my meditation, and I wanted to go deeper. So I just dove in, and I was completely dedicated. It was like, for that period of time, no alcohol, no TV. I ate really clean, and I would read and meditate, do my breathing discipline, but I was spending like 6, 7, 8 hours a day. Aside from the time with him, I was doing my own self-study and going deep. So in this 1 year intensive period, I started to build enough Shakti, or enough energy in my field, that I could go into deep states of meditation just within a few minutes of sitting down. And I got to where I could go into astral plane meditation, causal plane meditation. I was having visitations by higher dimensional beings. Like I received initiations in different ways. I could hear they call the sound of the spheres, or the celestial music, and so many beautiful different things that, for a lot of people, hearing that is like, they don't believe it. You don't believe it till you actually experience it. And then you're like, holy shit. So if that's true, all the other stuff that they talk about is also probably true.
Right.
I've seen enough on the other side of things in the out of body and higher states of meditation, that I know that there's an incredible potential for all of us to open up and to grow into. And what I noticed in my life from having those experiences and initiations was the awareness within me was growing in intensity. And it was starting to confront the various blockages and various things that were out of resonance with my core vibration. And so after that 1 year period, I had an intense relationship experience that I went through. And it was like almost like universe teaching me a lesson in discernment and so many other things of my naivety. I had such a spiritual high at the time that I really felt like I could help, the girlfriend at the time overcome different things. But she was on a little bit of a different path. And so, but you get like to where kind of they call like a savior or hero mentality, where you just want to like do good and help. And and so it became a suck that eventually actually was very draining. And so like I lost 2 years on my path in that relationship to all of a sudden be from that high to this low. And then I'm like, oh man. So I went back to my intensive discipline. And as I did, I received another initiation. It took a period of time to build some energy, but I received another initiation. And so I went to Walden, New York, where they have a temple of peace called Shanti Mandir. And so it's part of our lineage, the Siddha Yoga lineage. And I spent time with Swami Nityananda, who is the current guru who is holding that lineage. So, and Randy, who was my teacher, also accompanied me, and we went up for 16 days and did a Shakti Pod intensive. So we're there, we're chanting, we're doing the 3 meditations a day with the 1 hour of chanting, which moves a ton of energy. And for people who aren't familiar with like a chanting and repetition of mantras, when you chant, it activates your bandhas, it activates your breath, it activates all of this upward movement of energy. And the things that you're saying have a certain resonance, because the Sanskrit language is actually attuned to the subtle Shaktis of, we have 52 sounds or 52 petals of the chakras. These are the core creative resonances within us. And so as you're doing these chants and tones, so for example, one time we were sitting there for 4 hours on a Saturday, we do the intensives. And all of a sudden, my astral vision kicked on, and I'm seeing these white pearls of energy swirling around everyone's crown chakra. And I look around, and I can see everyone's auric field. And when I got done with that 4-hour intensive, every lymph node in my body was swollen, because I was detoxing my whole system from the expansion of subtle energy, the Shakti. When I left there, I was so charged up after the 16 days. I went back to Florida, where I'd lived, and I was invited to a Native American sweat lodge. It was a Lakota sweat lodge in Homestead. So I'm in this sweat lodge, and the medicine pour's name was Bantu. And I don't know the rest of his name, but Bantu is what we call him. But he was a wonderful teacher. His main teaching was, recognize that we're in relationship with everyone and everything everywhere. And pray to heal all your relations with everyone and everything everywhere. And ask Spirit to be a hollow bone, so that the Spirit of God flows through you, that you're a walking blessing. And so that was like really resonant for me. And I prayed and prayed. And, I got there way early, and I did like over an hour of my traditional chants from the lineage. Then I started doing the prayer ties, and I'm doing that, really meditating on that. When we went into lodge, because of my Kundalini training and all of the internal arts I had learned through my teacher, which is a lot of the advanced Hatha Yoga and Raja Yoga stuff, we're in the lodge, and they pass around a manatee bone, and we're praying out loud. And at one point, it was so hot and so intense, and Mahabandha, I exhaled all my air. I sat and I pulled everything up. All of my energy rose up, and boop, I went right out of the top of my head, and I'm in the Brahma Randra, which is we call the 8th chakra, the one above your crown. It's like 12 inches above your head. And so literally my whole awareness was just a point of awareness above my head, but I was in divine presence. I just felt like complete sacredness, and it was showering down upon me. And as it did, it was so beautiful. But the round, they do like 20-minute or 40-minute rounds in the lodge. And so the round ended, and each time then they bring in new grandfather stones, in the middle or whatever. So that round ended. And so I slowly, kind of like my energy descended back into my body. While my body was like so overwhelmed from the heat, from the out of body experience, from all the thing. So I was like kind of trembling. And I asked the grandfather, or the medicine poor Bantu, I said, "Grandfather, is it okay if I exit the lodge?" You know, because you have to ask permission. So I crawl out of the lodge, and I'm so like in this energy. It was so intense. I lay on my back, and my body started doing spontaneous postures. Like my arms started going like this, almost like the dance of Shiva. My hands started doing all of these mudras, and I wasn't even trying, but they were just unfolding. It was like on autopilot, or inspired in spirit. And I'm laying there on my back, and all of a sudden, I'm getting this kind of choking feeling in my throat, and it was really intense. And it was like almost like if you put electricity on this part of your throat. Zzz, and I'm like, oh, first I'm coughing, choking, and then I started to get glimpses of lightning inside my mind. And then this started to calm down, and my hands were doing all these mudras, which now I figured out was a very specific spiritually guided sequence to unlock this chakra as it was being initiated into the fifth dimension, or of learning. And so now all of a sudden there's like a being in my field of awareness, but not physically, just inside my mind, who I'm seeing, and the whole body was made of lightning. And the lightning is flashing forth and transmitting to me codes of light, which I want to call the Christ consciousness. Right. And so I was getting this non-dual understanding of spiritual consciousness, and it just hit me. For 45 minutes I was in this super altered, incredible experience state. And when I came out of it, it was like my mind was gone, and it was so powerful. You know, I couldn't really even talk about it. I tried to explain a little bit just to the grandfather, but it was like almost like I just was supposed to sit with it, you know? So it took me like over a week or two, and I just stayed home. I just was trying to process, like, what was that, you know? And but that initiated me into what they call like the throat, the seat of purification. And the symbol is a circle, like a full moon, but it means wholeness or holiness. And so it's also called the seat of the unity consciousness and things like that, or the gates of heaven, because our upper three chakras are said to be the spiritual, or more heavenly, or more our connection to the unmanifest dimension of reality, right? And so what happened, and through my experience, was I felt like, okay, what a blessing. But this was a blessing of spiritual fire. And it actually took me about 17 years of being in the fire and doing the purification practice. You know, it was a baptism by fire. And they say your first birth is birth by water. You know, your mother's water breaks and you're born into the world. Well, then your second one is the awakening into the spiritual fire, and you know, the phoenix rises out of the fire, but it's only when all the impurities have been burnt off of your consciousness. And so impurities, you know, are really fear, doubt, and negativity, but these are the dross of all of human consciousness. And so what happened was, this was like a spiritual light then being within me didn't allow any of these dense or lower vibrations to continue to be just dormant. It just brought them all up. And at first it was so overwhelming, because it was like, you know, your blessing feels like a curse because you're getting hammered with all this heavy karma. And so working through all of that, you know, slowly and steadily staying on the path and keep going. And you know, I recently had an affirmation, a confirmation, a visitation that affirmed that I made it through the gauntlet, made it through the fire. But it was a really powerful and intensive period, and a great blessing, because, you know, even though in this lifetime it felt like, wow, I really didn't feel like I had that much karma. You know, I've been a heart-centered, good, you know, happy person doing good things. But it's from lifetimes, because our soul is transmigratory. And so this is, you know, it's we are on a progressive learning path, and for each one of us, we're at different stages in that path. And so it's just a beautiful thing to recognize, you know, like we're at different levels of initiation, and wherever you are is perfect. And but I feel so grateful to have had these initiations and to have made it through it. You know, at different times I was like, man, this is really overwhelming, and this is really tough, but it was worth it. It was definitely worth it.
Yeah, well,
So
and I think it's so common that a lot of people have what they often term as like the dark night of the soul, where they go through the fire, through the gauntlet, and they get the signs that they need to make changes in their lives, that they need to grow. But so many people get stuck and they just don't move past it, or they just don't listen to the signs, and they may have multiple, you know, initiations of fire and dark nights of the soul, and they just don't heed the call, and eventually comes and rears its ugly head. I know I had a similar experience in my life, just not listening to the call, just not listening to the voice that told me that I had to do something else with my life. And eventually the call got loud enough to where I had no choice but to listen.
yes.
Yeah. Well, I know that we were talking a little bit before, and I wanted to get to the bioenergetic breathing, because I know that was an incredible part of your training, and also what you do now as part of your energy work. And I know it was pretty amazing to have that experience while we were on the trip. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that, and how specifically that helps kind of advance your meditation practice.
Okay. Yes. Excellent. Excellent. So now the past 21 years, I've had a full-time healing arts and body, mind, spiritual disciplines. So teaching and healing practice. And I've had schools where I've had my own yoga schools. I've worked out of many yoga schools and different healing type of facilities, including in different doctor's offices. And so across the board with acupuncture, chiropractic, neurologists, orthopedics, so the clinical side of things, as well as more of the metaphysical and spiritual side of things. And so I really, over time, I feel like some of my gift set has been to really be open to the universe, or worldly wisdom teachings. And so all different traditions from different countries, and just knowing that all of it is a manifestation of the one consciousness. So in seeing that, it's like if you go to 7 different countries and you hold up an apple, they'll call it 7 different names, but it's still just an apple. And so it's the same way with these deeper core principles of our consciousness, and being able to see how each different culture or tradition has approached the center of the self, and what value that they bring to the table, because each one does bring value, and there's pearls of great wisdom, and we can cherry pick those. And so part of what I've done, is I have a massive library of material. I had an incredible teacher, or many different teachers actually, that have exposed me to different approaches. And I really distilled the information down, and I developed the Mystical Human Yoga School a while back. And it was based on 8 core disciplines, which were a basic reformation of yoga, qigong, breath work, internal arts, meditation, different types of healing practices, including Thai massage and neuromuscular. And so, I really have quite a broad spectrum of different modalities that I work with, but really they're all different ways of working to the same means. Because if we look at the healing approach, it's more like the nurturing feminine side of it, but it's always to get back to wholeness and completeness. If we look at the spiritual discipline side, it's more the masculine approach to, growing and, taking yourself in continuing to evolve and to grow in a better and higher way, and opening your consciousness. And so really it's like the yin and yang of the same direction, the same thing. So with the breath work, that has been one of the most powerful keys to unlock on every level. I mean, I use sacred heart breathing with clients and with groups, and it creates like an ayahuasca journey. It creates a psychedelic out of body, sometimes in the body. You can be in complete ecstasy. You can be having visions. You feel energy. People who've never felt energy, if you get move the breath in a particular way for a long enough period of time, the electrical charge builds up so strong that it starts pressing. The pressure of it pushes out into your field. And we have 72,000 subtle energy pathways that create the matrix we call our aura, but it's a holographic matrix that's life supporting, and it supports all of the cells, it supports all of the physical part of us. But this subtle body or light body is charged by prana. So prana, life force, chi, bioenergy are all interchangeable words talking about the same thing. Yeah. So within us, we know if the energy leaves our body, rigor mortis kicks in, the fluids drain out, and the body decomposes. So the energy is the animating force. It's the electricity. It's like if your phone doesn't have electricity, you can't do anything on it. It's like a paperweight. You could throw it at someone. It's like limited use. The fan, if there's no electricity, won't spin. All these things. So electricity in our body is running all the vital functions and allowing us to do everything that we do. Now, but it's not understood, that well by Western culture. Eastern culture has been studying it through Qigong and yoga and different practices for a long time. But definitely there's more and more of it coming to light. And I think that that's really the next step, because yoga has become prevalent in the West. But a lot of times when people are practicing, they're still very focused on the physical part, which is okay, because that definitely starts opening you up to the energetics. But the more advanced isn't putting your leg behind your head or doing some crazy floating posture, or handstanding. It really is learning to build the energy, because energy activates your consciousness. It activates the subtle energy centers. It lights the lamp of awareness, which expands your field to connect to the infinite intelligence. And this is where we really start to progress within. Through building energy, you're healthier. Everything you do is enhanced. We could name anything in life. I mean, whether it's a creative outlet, some kind of art, music, whether it's a physical sport, like, you're a competitive athlete, or you just like to surf, or to, do some other type of, mountain biking or climbing or whatever it might be, or whether it's lovemaking, whether it's, being able to feel and sense and connect to nature, connect to other people, to connect to spirit. I mean, building internal energy is power. It's vitality. It's something that is so valuable, and it's what keeps you young and healthy. Just for example, when your joints in your body, like if your lifestyle, maybe maybe you don't sleep very well, you don't eat very good, you like to have alcohol or cigarettes, and over time your stress is building up because the light of awareness isn't very strong. When you're doing all those things, you don't have enough chi to stay up, so you're more reactive, and then the chi starts to diminish. And we can talk about the dynamics of that, because I have a great way to explain it all. But yeah. But when the chi starts to diminish, now your reservoir of energy is not as good, or is not as strong. And so it's sort of like you get sick easier. When you get injured, your body doesn't heal and recover as fast. When something emotional happens, it's more devastating. It makes you more unstable. Your mind isn't able to focus or hold its attention in one point, because the energy is not there supporting it. And so everything in your life becomes harder. You feel like the weight of the world is a pressure that's collapsing your field, literally, because your field is weak and it's diminished. When you build internal energy, your field starts to press out, and you start to feel like you're pushing and you're holding this space. You're a presence in the world, and you're holding a certain energetic charge. When the energy inside of you is stronger than the energy outside of you, your field expands. But it's the opposite. When your energy starts going down, your field collapses, and literally things impact you and hit you harder. Right. So you can basically, everything in your whole life becomes a whole lot easier when you build internal energy. Yeah. And it just is through education and training that we can do it, because energy is abundant. We're like fish in the ocean. It's like, oh, there's no water. Yeah, water's everywhere. The energy is coming in from all directions, up from the earth, in from the trees, from the stars. It's a charge in the atmosphere. Even empty space is proven to have so much energy in it that if you took a teacup size of empty space and you liberated it, it would boil the oceans off the planet in one flash of light. And so we know that when you breathe in, most people think of, you're breathing in oxygen and you're exhaling carbon dioxide. All right. Those are gases. And yes, that's the physical quality of breath. But the energetic quality of breath is chi, which is a type of electricity. All right. It's not the same as the electricity running through electronics, but it's a type of biological electricity that's running through the entire universe and supporting and sustaining every form of life. And so when we learn how to breathe more powerfully, 70% of your life force comes from your breath. That's more nourishment than the food you eat, which is still important, or any other way that we take in energy. But most adults are chest breathers. So they're not belly breathing. Belly breathing is diaphragmatic breathing. Every baby is born naturally being a belly or diaphragmatic breather. And over time, because of stress, and that's the most important point, is that because of stress causes, when we have basically a fight or flight response. So when we go into fear, doubt, or negativity, it creates an internal stress. Now we start to feel the stress, and it squeezes our solar plexus, puts pressure on our adrenals, so we release adrenaline into our blood, which then the kidneys dump their reservoir of energy into the blood for fight or flight response. But if we were really being attacked or really had to fight for our life, that would be one thing. But most of the time, we're getting a fight or flight response because we haven't mastered our mind. Right. Because our mind is just reacting to everything with fear, doubt, negativity, which is counterproductive. And it's actually a duality, which is creating distortion within us. So the whole point of enlightenment is to no longer cast a shadow of fear, doubt, and negativity within your own inner being. So inside yourself, we want to unify the field in love, trust, and positive energy flow. So when we do meditation, we're building the light of awareness within us, and then we use that light of awareness to be more mindful so that we can be aware of what type of thoughts we're thinking. In yoga, they call the level of mind the causal level, because it causes the emotional chemical response within our body, and it affects us on every other level. Yeah. So it's the causal level. So as we build this type of awareness, this type of internal energy supports the light of awareness. I believe one of the passages or teachings in the Bible says, you have to keep enough oil in the lamp to keep the lamp burning all night long. So oil really is an analogy for chi or bioenergy or prana. When we don't have enough energy built up, the light of awareness goes out. Now we're just reacting to everything, and we don't have the vantage point of seeing from our spiritual eye. And so when we build the chi back up, that light comes on, and now it becomes our ability to discern, to see clearly, and to create from our truth, which is the core resonance of our being. So, so bioenergetic breathing or chi or pranayama, really, it builds in blood oxygen, which boosts your immune system. It detoxifies your entire body. It stimulates the subtle electromagnetic field of your body where you store impressions like old emotions and unresolved issues. So those things, they block the flow of energy. So when you liberate those through breath work, you start freeing up more space, and you can hold a stronger charge. Then when you build the energy, then your mind gets quieter, clearer, sharper. So now you have a little more space to be able to reprogram, because all of us are coming out of the raw material of life. That means that all the programs are there until you start deleting them. We all get it. It's there just from school, from TV, from the collective unconsciousness. We're born into this amnesia. We're born into the collective dysfunction. And it takes quite an effort to start to open your inner space and really allow the deepest, most authentic, beautiful part of yourself to come in and to be embodied in your mind and body. So we want to, a lot of people are thinking, okay, heaven's out there, and if I just maybe can do these things, I can escape this torturous reality and I can get to some higher place that's better off, But really what we want is we want to bring heaven to earth by embodying our spiritual nature and then being able to create from that resonance of love. Because if we think about the earth is such an incredible, beautiful place, and having each other, when it's a heart-based connection, it's such an incredible and enriching experience to be with another person who is in their heart. Now we have a bunch of egomaniacs running around hurting each other and trying to one-up each other all the time. Yeah, that gets old. It wears you out and you're like, okay, I got enough of that, Yeah. But we're all shifting. I know our whole planet is going through a massive purge. And just like that dark night of the soul, things got worse before they got better within me. And I see that happening for the collective consciousness. A lot of things that are, coming up right now. I mean, the racist stuff, all the political stuff. I mean, it's being magnified so that we can see how ridiculous it is. And then from there we can shift. If it weren't magnified, it would stay kind of, it would stay there, but it wouldn't be addressed because it's like kind of manageably down below the surface of our awareness. But the fact that things are rising up gives us the opportunity to make a decision head on and then clear the field. And
Yeah.
so that's really what's happening collectively, which is cool. And we all have to learn to breathe through it and keep building our energy up.
Yeah, well, and that's, brings up something I know that we talked a little bit about when we were on our trip, and, something that's obviously on everybody's mind is, the whole, this big shift that we're going through, and, with, the issues that we're having with the quote unquote pandemic. Don't get me started on that whole thing, but,
Yeah.
but, but yeah, I mean, just how important it is for people to be able to manage their own energy so that they're always at their optimal state rather than living in a place of fight or flight. Because when you're in that place, your adrenals are tapped, your immune system's down, you're unable to really react to things from a place of higher consciousness. You're always reacting from a primal fear. So yeah, I'd love to hear like how you use that energy to like boost your health and your immune system, and how people maybe can put that into practice with their lives to help, rather than focus on how to get a good mask. They can actually focus on building their internal wellness so that, they're healthier and can resist things that way.
Yes, very well put. And so I'll definitely elaborate on that. So, it is something where there's always fear mongering, and that type of, and now, I don't have all of the details and all of the information on the COVID and the pandemic and what's actually happening and what's actually behind the agenda of all of it, because we know that through the history politically, and there's a, sort of weird, dark global agenda where they're using false flag events to create other side swipes. And, we don't know what's up with all of that. Now, I won't even go there right now, um, but the most important thing is, life is always going to have stress factors. They're always going to be there. And so the big thing that human beings are up against right now is that we have to, in order for us really to survive and to evolve, we have to learn how to grow beyond stress. Because stress factors and stress inside of you is two different things. So stress factor can come, but it doesn't mean it has to stress you out. Stress factor means, okay, something's happening that takes your attention, that you have to deal with, that is going in a different way than you wished it would go, or whatever. But, creating internal stress is something that is self-induced. It's not happening to you. It's your reaction that's happening to you. And you're the only one who can control your own reaction is you. But that only comes from a level of self-mastery and awareness.
Yeah,
So
and our bodies don't know the difference whether, stress is real or imagined. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Because you could sit here and think, oh my God, someone's going to come in. They have a gun. They're going to break in my house. And you could sit there literally, shivering, sweating bullets, feeling nauseous, feeling sick, and, making yourself sick. But it was just an imagined threat. It's like in the dark, you see a stick, you think it's a snake, and you jump and you scream and you're freaking out, and it's just a stick. But the mind, when it thinks, it projects an imagination that's rooted in fear, doubt, and negativity. The emotional and chemical and physical are responding as though it's really in front of you, really happening right now. And so 90% of human misery and suffering on planet Earth, 90%, this is huge. So 90% of human misery and suffering is self-induced mental, emotional uneasiness. And it comes from unconscious programs and thoughts. And so what we really are doing through our meditation practice and our breathwork practice, so for example, the breathing helps to, shift the function of your nervous system. Your nervous system gets wired up, and because it's wired up in that fight or flight state, then you start chest breathing, right? And so when you're in a chest breathing pattern, your nervous system is in a high state and the brain waves are going really fast or rapid. As soon as you change the way you're breathing and you bring it back down into the diaphragm and belly and you slow down the cadence of your breath, we go from a pant, like fear pant, to a deep, slow, rhythmic breath. Now your heart rate slows down, your adrenaline slows down, your nervous system begins to relax, your mind gets quiet. And so not only does it have all of these effects immediately on unlocking the system from the grip of fear, which is holding on so tight, we can immediately through it. I'm not talking like 3 breaths. Okay, I'm done. I'm talking about sitting down and concentrating for 15, 20, 30 minutes on just doing your breathing. Then once you really develop it as a skill, then you can be more mindful of how you're breathing throughout the day. And you can be, when you breathe this breath, it's called the breath of wellness. You feel well all the time because you're relaxed, you're at ease, your nervous system's calm, you're grounded, your mind is more focused. And so the breathing is not only creating all of these effects and unlocking the grip of fear, but it's also building the energy that it takes to hold the light of awareness on high within you. We want the energy to rise up in our spinal column and light up the higher faculties of our consciousness, which we could call the upper chakras. But these energy centers start to dim down when the energy is low. When we're too dense, when our energy is low and we're not resonant, they shut down. Now the energy gets stuck in just the physical body, the emotional body, and the mind. And that's the ego bubble. So we just get stuck in the ego bubble and we feel separated. And we're always reacting to everything. So as soon as we do the breathing, we slow down, we soften, we relax, and then we start to build the energy that it takes to light up and activate the higher seats of consciousness. Now we're present. Now we're able to be mindful. Now we're able to make a choice that's empowered from the core resonance of our being, where we can be mindful to make good choices, to not harbor fear, doubt, or negativity. Those are actually the enemy. Whereas most people and their unconsciousness think that those energies are their friend, and they're not. And that's the whole story the Bhagavad Gita is about when Arjuna is talking to Krishna. It's that we think that some of these thoughts, some of these ideas are our friend, and they're not. And we have to recognize that, whoa, that thought is rooted in fear, doubt, or negativity. And I literally have to cast it out of my mind, cast it out of my inner being, because it doesn't have place in me. I'm a field of light, love, peace, bliss. I am, I am. That I am presence within us is love. It is the summation of all that is good. And so this is where, the Buddhist teaching, Om Mani Padme Hum, it is the lotus rising out of the mud and opening into the light of consciousness. And the essence then is, coming forth. The essence, our essence, is the very spirit of God within us, which we call it maybe our soul, but this spirit of God within us, that essence. And so we are rising out of the muck, which is the unconsciousness. And it's through this type of internal alchemy or process that we are awakening to make empowered conscious choices and hold ourselves in resonance with our heart. Because every time we think a thought that's resonant with fear, doubt, or negativity, the heart's field collapses. And if we're not holding the heart open, the heart becomes the bridge between heaven, the upper chakras, and earth, the lower chakras. So heaven and earth are connected through the heart. And so when we call trust is also like faith, because it's faith in an unseen reality. It's trusting that there's an infinite intelligence beyond our own. And even though we have uncertainty, even though we don't understand, we are trusting that somehow, some way, the intelligence which is organizing all of the trillions of cells in our body, holding us in a perfect harmonic state, also has our back and also is supporting us in our whole life process. So that when we get quiet intellectually and the mind slows down, there's an opening into intuition. There's an opening into a feeling awareness, which then becomes, inspiration. It becomes epiphany. It becomes insights. It becomes revelations, where we begin to understand ourselves in relationship with nature, with humanity, with creator source. And so we start to gain, we call the book of knowledge is really in the higher heart. And so it takes holding that heart open and trusting and being quiet so that the still small voice of the infinite intelligence within us is begin to be heard. And as it does, it becomes the inner teacher that guides us on our path of life. And how beautiful that life is, life supporting, life affirming, life sustaining, life, we evolve, we grow. And especially when you have access to your intuitive capacities, your learning skyrockets, because everything you apply yourself to in this way, you accelerate at, because no longer are you going against the grain of yourself by shadow casting with the thoughts of fear, doubt, and negativity, which happens unconsciously. And that's why it takes quite a bit of internal energy building and meditative practice to start to see how a subtle, a trigger from something that you see, hear, or even just think, or a dream, or all of these things are constantly triggering us. And we have to start to recognize when we're triggered and how to counter it. So I call internal arts martial arts for your consciousness. So we know martial arts is like, if you're getting attacked and you got all these attackers coming in, you got to be able to handle it. Kung Fu master, you take out 10 opponents and be able to just not even break a sweat. So Jet Li, Bruce Lee, but internal arts is really learning how to protect your inner being. And so the kingdom of heaven is within. When we're not protecting our own mind by having a filter of discernment where we're recognizing that thoughts are rooted in beliefs, and all these things can be rooted in fear, doubt, or negativity. And when we're bought into those, when we've paid energy into them, when we're believing in them, we're entertaining them with our mind, it's distorting our entire field. And so we are learning how all of these things develop skills of how to defend yourself from psychic subtle influences, other people's thoughts that they project on you, things that you're seeing on TV that are shrouded in a certain type of thought or belief or idealism. And they're constantly bombarding. But to be able to stay in your core resonance, we have to have a daily practice. Like we all know that if you don't brush your teeth, these teeth start to go bad. You have bad breath. It's a dirty hygiene. When you brush your teeth a couple times a day, keeps you fresh. When you shower at least once a day, you stay smelling good and you're clean and good. Well, we have these internal practices. When you breathe and you're doing deep belly breathing, you're relaxing and cleansing the nervous system in the subtle energy body, the aura. When you're meditating, you're clearing the field of the mind, and you develop the higher awareness so that you can begin to discern. And like a garden, you have to pull the weeds and you have to plant the good seeds. The same way, the field of our mind has to be tended. And if we're not doing that, it becomes overgrown and the weeds can start to strangle the fruits and flowers.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah. Well, that's so much part of it is that we kind of have what I would consider the most powerful tool in the universe right in our skull. And yet, we don't get an owner's manual for it. We don't do the work. We're not really taught how to use it when we're growing up. So, learning how to use your mind as a tool rather than have it use you. It's something we come back to a lot here on the podcast. It's about, just learning to harness the incredible power that you have in your body, in your soul, all that energy that's within you, and learning how to really use that to maximize your potential, how to use it to actually control your reaction to everything that is around you. That's just such a beautiful practice to really get into. And we've seen it again and again with like clients that we've worked with. We'll tell them to go through a meditation process, to really envision what they want for their lives, to really come up with a detailed meditation practice of like really living it, feeling the emotional connection to that, to that outcome. And they'll suddenly start to have all these things flow into their life with ease. And the next thing they know, they look around and everything they had, envisioned for themselves and meditated on is popping up. everywhere. And then the funny
Yes.
thing is, so many times they don't even think it's from the meditation. They think it's coincidence. But
Yeah, yeah, and that's the way we become a lucid dreamer, and this is a beautiful, opportunity that we have to be a conscious co-creator, a participant in the world drama, and to dream a good dream. You know, our mind is, well, like you said, our mind body is the most sophisticated technology known to man, and it didn't come with a user's manual, and so it literally, we have to study it. We've studied all of the sciences about the world around us. We call those exoteric sciences. Exoteric is all the different subjects we have in middle school, high school, college, and really it's mathematics, it's geography, it's history, it's politics, it's studying biology or marine biology, diving into the ocean, looking into space. I mean, we have dissected bodies. We know about the world around us, but it's the yogis and the meditators and the shaman and the beings who have dove inward that have basically come up with the esoteric sciences. And so we can learn a lot through self-study, through these practices, but there's nothing that's going to teach you more than diving in, not just reading about it, not just knowing about it, but diving into yourself and having your own firsthand personal experience. And so, another beautiful analogy is this. I mean, our culture and the educational system currently really trains us to be left brain dominant beings. It comes from a male dominant society where we have valued more of those qualities of what it is to be in the left brain. Now, the energy of the sacred feminine is on a rise, and that pertains both to men and women, because even women are more left brain typically. Now, so it's really not about your physical body when we say male or female or goddess or divine feminine or masculine, but it's really about the sun and moon, the yin and yang. It's the two hemispheres of the brain where, our right brain is assertive. It's our left brain is the sun. It's the masculine. It's assertive, aggressive. It's time oriented, goal oriented. We want to achieve. We want to do all of these things. We always want to better, bigger, go beyond. And so the right brain, the sacred feminine energy, is really more about, instead of time, it's about space. And space is about the feeling awareness of the environment around you, of being connected intimately and feeling and sensing things, and the environment inside of you, and tending to what's going on inside your emotional body, inside your mind. And so a lot of the esoteric practices are in alignment with the return of the sacred feminine energy for all of humanity. And so we're all learning how to be whole and complete by bringing that part of us back, by tending to what's going on inside and balancing it with our, it's great to grow and achieve and have goals, but if you can't find contentment in this moment and have intimacy and be able to be, connected, then you're missing life. And so we have to find this beautiful balance where we have both, but they're in a balanced symbiotic relationship. And so part of the thing with meditation and our culture, especially in the West, as we have, and pretty much everywhere, really left brain dominant societies, is that the mind, like a dog, likes to chew bones, right? Dogs like to chew bones. And if you try to get that bone away from the dog while he's chewing it, he's going to be pissed. He might even bite you, growl, or at least be like, hold on to it, like locked jaws. Like, I don't want to let the bone go,
Yeah.
So just like that, the mind likes to think thoughts. A dog likes to chew bones. The mind likes to think thoughts. And the first thing that happens when you start trying to take the thoughts away from your mind is it gets pissed off and it throws a fit and it fights you. Your mind, when you're sitting there and you first start to try to sit down and get quiet, it's like, oh, this is a waste of time. Nothing's really happening. I don't even think I'm doing it right. I hate this. The mind it'll start coming up with prompts like, oh, you should check your email. Oh, you forgot to turn off those lights in the other room. Or, oh, now I have to go pee. Now I'm thirsty. Now what am I going to make for dinner? It just prompts. And otherwise it will say, meditation's not for me. I hate this. Those are only thoughts. But if we believe the thought, then we just get carried away by it. So we literally, when we sit down to meditate, we're in a surrender, which for a lot of people, especially driven people, A-type personalities, who are constantly achievers, they feel like, what am I really achieving by sitting here aside from frustration? And so it's very frustrating at first, but that only lasts for a short period. It's like the dog growling. The mind has such a hold. It's a tenacious hold. In the pictures of Shiva, they always show Shiva. Now Shiva is one of the beings talked about in yoga, but also in the Hindu religion. And but just as an example, just to use this as storyline to prove a point, Shiva is always shown wearing a tiger skin around his waist, right? Or riding on a tiger. Now, the tiger, whether it was a real tiger Shiva was riding or not, but the symbology behind it is that the mind is tenacious like a tiger, all right? And so it's when we overcome that lower animal part of our mind that's so tenacious, it doesn't want to let go of the thoughts. It's got its claws in and it's just like, hell no, I'm not letting go. But we slowly, through the higher part of our willpower and our determination, we sit and we just continue to command ourselves through relaxation, through surrender, through letting go, through holding intention. We command that the mind relax, to be quiet, to be still. And so, the first teaching of yoga is chitta vritti nirodha, means the stilling of the mental fluctuations. And so when we can achieve that, that's a very powerful state for us to abide in naked awareness. So awareness that's devoid of the content of the mind. This is our true state. And so what we are as a soul is a point of awareness in the field of creation. So that's a big one. If that hits you, it's strong. So we're a point of awareness in the field of creation. And when we do meditation, we finally go beyond the mind and body, and we're able to rest in the field of awareness without any content. And we get to feel what it feels like to be ourself, which is when there's no thought, we feel bliss, we feel peace, we feel a sense of expansiveness, fearlessness, openness. And so this restful state that we attain to is really who we are. And now from that becomes the vantage point where then we can witness what's going on in the mind to begin doing the work. But the mind is holding on because it wants to keep this position of dominance. And so literally it takes will to know, will to remember. We have our free will is the will to forget and live in fear, doubt, and negativity, live in the state of distraction, live in the state of forgetfulness, or the will to remember. And this will to remember, it takes sitting in that will to remember and to be still. And as you do, slowly the mind's claws start to retract and the animal becomes tamed to your spiritual will. The lower mind body is considered to be part of nature, part of like an animal. We're in an animal body, but we're a soul being. And so we literally are, through the willpower, sitting to be still, sitting into your meditation. Like I sat for 45 minutes and got one little glimpse. And that was a breakthrough. That was a huge breakthrough. And it might take you sitting and just being like, okay, I'm not going to give up. I'm just going to sit here. And it might take an hour, and finally you get a little glimpse. But each time you keep doing it, it starts to open a pathway, and that pathway allows you to start to tap in to going beyond your mind body. And that gives you this bird's eye view, the spiritual view, the vantage point to be able to do the work on the transformational work, or we call alchemical work, of transmuting the lower, denser, grosser, unconscious qualities, tendencies that all of us have and start out with. And we transmute it by releasing the fear, the thoughts and beliefs and feelings that are rooted in fear, doubt, negativity. We continue doing this type of internal work. And eventually we clear and cleanse the system, and our vibration continues to rise up and to expand into higher states of empowerment. Yeah. And so empowerment, isn't over other people. It's a self-mastery. You're empowered now. You're not going against yourself, creating, which 90% of the world is creating their own hell because it's their own mind and emotions going against them. And so we've learned how to tame the lower animal. We've learned to bring our faculties into into alignment with where we're using them, like you said, instead of them using us. And so it's such a beautiful thing. But every time you hear it, it helps to penetrate a little deeper. So even if we reiterate this a number of times, each time it's, for our listeners, it's sinking in a little bit more and a little bit more. And it
Yeah.
helps us to understand, what is it really about? Because many people don't understand when they sit down to meditate what meditation really is. I mean, we know it's good for us. We know we're supposed to feel peaceful and many things, but we're literally, you know, um, raising ourselves into a state of empowerment where we are inheriting what they call in the Bible, the kingdom and the glory. The kingdom, which is the kingdom of heaven, which heaven we would call all the summation of all good. All right. And the glory, which is the manifesting heaven on earth, like manifesting when you're living in resonance, you feel healthy. You have a radiance that comes out of you. Everywhere you go, things are improved. If you're around plants, they get healthier. If you're around people, they feel good. Wherever you go, whatever you're doing, you're bringing that spirit of God, that high resonant energy with you, and it's a blessing. And this is when more and more people are doing it, we're creating this high vibrational, experience here on Earth. And what
Yeah.
a magical, beautiful thing we can do. And it's
Yeah, for
totally
sure.
well within our capacity.
Yeah, well, and when I was doing the introduction, I was talking about your energy and how you affect people when you're around them, and that really is it. When you're tapped into that place of your own inner knowing, your own infinite potential, and when you have that calmness of knowing, then it definitely sends out an energy signature to everybody so that they really feel it. And so when you're around people, you can see it every time you walk into a room. People light up when they see you, and we have that effect ourselves sometimes when we go places.
Yes,
So
yes.
it is very, very important that people are doing the work, that they're doing the meditation, that they're learning how to really tap into themselves and their own potential. And I know we touched a little bit, just, there's so many different ways that you can do that. You can do that through meditation. You can do that through a moving meditation of being quiet with yourself, that sort of thing. There's obviously, we've talked a lot, about how to tap into your subconscious, how to slow your brain waves down to get into that theta brainwave state so that you're more able to access your subconscious. Like you talked about with, that inner tiger, that dog that's chewing on the bone. It's like our subconscious is doing everything it can to keep us safe. And it thinks that what it's doing is exactly what we want it to, but it's our job, and it's kind of a fun job to have, of learning how to access all those programs that we've received over our lives that are having us process things from a space of fear, doubt, and uncertainty, and instead shift it towards love, infinite potential. um, well, I know that we could probably talk for the next 5-6 hours, but I'm going to try and get us towards, like, a place where people can learn a little bit more about you and what you offer and how they can actually work with you. I know we talked a little bit about the bioenergetic breathing that you do, but also you do adventure retreats, and you have a online training as well that you offer. Could you maybe share a little bit about that? And
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely. So I do. I have my website is mysticalhumanadventures.com. I also have an Instagram and a Facebook page, and so um, I do offer retreats right now. This season, coming with the whole travel bans and restrictions and stuff, it's this season is a little bit off, but we're going to do towards the fall 2 retreats. I'm toward the end of September and toward October 20th in North Carolina. Get people here to the mountains, and it's really wonderful. Typically, it's family style accommodations where we'll have a big Airbnb home. We have a chef. Every morning we'll do some sort of body, mind, spiritual discipline. Could be yoga or qigong or meditation or breath work. We Then we'll get outside to go on some excursion. Typically it will be hiking And I use all trails, and I find the best places. And we're doing 5-star trails with waterfalls. We go swimming in the waterfalls and cold plunge,
I can
and it's just
personally testify that from, our
yeah.
cold plunges for sure.
Yes, and we'll pick wild blueberries. And in October here, it's just incredible with the season change in the fall leaves. It's just one of the most remarkable things. So we're real close to the Blue Ridge Parkway and the Tuskegee River, and just west of Asheville. And so typically we'll do a couple of hour excursion, eat lunch out on the trail. We pack with our camel packs, and it's really fun. And we get back, and then we'll do a little downtime, and then we do a secondary practice, some sort of movement, or meditation or breath work, or again like that. And then have a big dinner and a bonfire, maybe some music, and we just sit around and connect as a community, chit chat. We also offer like bodywork sessions and things. Now, as far as online training, I right now on my website, mysticalhumanadventures.com, I have a Dalian Yoga training that's 6 hours of online instruction. And Dalian Yoga is one of my favorite styles. It's a really slow, deep, and meditative style of yoga. It's accessible by all levels. You could be a kid, you could be an advanced yogi, you could be an elderly. It doesn't matter. Everyone's going to benefit. It's just the nature of the practice. It's really pranayama driven. So if you're watching this and you're stressed out, and you just this would be one of the best places to start, would be to do the Dalian Yoga. You can do it at home from your laptop at your leisure. I have it priced really, really affordably. I did actually a pandemic pricing, $444. So it's under $5, and you get 6 hours of video. So that's a great way just to get into that zone and really start to feel the deep unwind and start to build the energy. Currently, I'm shooting videos for my bioenergetic breathing, but that's going to also be an online training. It's fairly extensive, it's a progression from beginner, intermediate, advanced. And so it's going to be like 36 videos that are laid out in a really beautiful sequence, all with it's energy education, esoteric education, and then the specific how to nourish yourself from pure life force. And so learning to build and work with the life force. So when we build life force, one of the first things that happens is our body starts detoxifying. All right. So when we're detoxifying, then we start, you want to make adjustments or changes in your lifestyle and habits. It makes you more conscious about what you're eating, because you start feeling so good that you feel when you eat the wrong thing, or do the wrong thing, that you feel like, oh, it's like a hit. It's like, it used to make you feel good eating that crap food, but now it's like, oh, it's like it's a downer. And so it starts building you up into where first you detoxify, then you start making these adjustments. As you are integrating that, then you rejuvenate your system. You'll take years off of your life. You'll heal your organ systems. Your eyes will start to light up with energy. And so that detoxify, rejuvenate. And then once you've been rejuvenated to a significant point, then you start activating the higher parts of your consciousness, where the wisdom, the knowledge, the epiphanies, the insights all start to unfold within you. And so this is part of your awakening process. And so all of our higher human potential becomes accessed through building that type of energy. So that product, I'm hoping to have finished within the next 2 months or so.
Yeah.
I'll announce it and let you know. Maybe we can send something out together. That's going to be a real celebration, because it's been in my heart for some time. I've had the inspiration to do it. And, I have this morning, I woke up in bed 4 a.m., sat up, and I did 2 hours of powerful pranayama practice, and then after that, I laid back down for a little while. But
Yeah.
it's just so wonderful, the amount of energy you build, the clarity you feel, and it has enhanced every area of my life. I've been down, and I had, when I was younger, and I had the programs running, and, I had the bad habits, and I've done all the stuff. I mean, I haven't been a purist my whole life. I haven't done the right thing my whole life, but I know that this is so powerful, so healing, and so transformative, that I feel like took a huge eraser and I got rid of all that shit. And I feel so good, you know, it really has completely shifted and opened me up in the most brilliant way.
That's awesome. Oh, I love it, love it, love it, man. Well, so one question I always love to ask everybody about meditation, and I know you touched on a little bit of a pretty powerful, interesting experience you had during meditation. Is there any one key, really moment or experience that you've had during your meditation that would stand out to you as one of the most interesting or powerful experiences?
All right. So what just kind of popped in for me right now? Okay, so I was down in Costa Rica and I was traveling. This was years ago. I was traveling on my own. The first 7 days, my father had come down and we hiked through the jungles and cloud forests, and you know we went to beautiful places. And then I went more for the surfing, and I stayed for like an additional 30 days. So it was like a long trip, 37 days down there. Well, in the midst of that trip, I'm just staying at this very simple hostel where it was like a $12 room, but it was a bed and a fan and a window, and that was it, you know, a community bathroom. And every day I would just walk with my surfboard down this dirt road and I would go and surf. And but I was doing meditation and I got quieter and quieter and quieter because everyone there speaks Spanish and I speak un poquito español, you know, just very little Spanish. So it was like, I didn't really talk much and I was in a really simple little town. And so just through, like a lot of people go to Vipassana and things, you know, to become quiet, but I was automatically being quiet because there was no one to talk to. No cell phones, no computers, no TV, no nothing, just sunrise, sunset. I would eat my, you know, a couple meals and go surfing, and that was it. And so after like 2 weeks of just being so quiet and I, you know, I'm probably now 3 weeks into my trip, but 2 weeks of being on my own and just being quiet. I that day go surfing and it's like I'm out there for about probably 6 hours or so, and the sun's starting to set. And it's Pacific Ocean. So as it sets, it kind of touches down the water, and the water is shimmering with all of the yellows and oranges, and then it's a red ball of fire, and then it's going up into the sky, and the sky was completely clear, cobalt blue, almost translucent, to where as I continued to pan up, I could see like Saturn and the full moon straight overhead. And then over the beach, you know, I'm looking over the beach, and it was just, I'm in an area called Langosta. This was years ago before they had anything developed there, and it was just jungle and a river mouth, and you couldn't see even one man-made thing, not a telephone pole. It was just pristine. So I'm by myself. I didn't see anyone the whole day, and I'm out there surfing, and the waves were like 12 foot. I'm getting barrels like 2 times per, you know, per wave, like just sections, and just having a blast. So I'm sitting out there and I'm just looking at all this. It was so gorgeous with all the pastel colors in the sky. And so I'm looking over the shoreline, and it's just the sand, the green jungle. And then above that was like a front where it was just a wall of dark clouds, but way over the land. So it wasn't close to me or anything. It wasn't like scary lightning or anything. It was just a wall of black clouds way over the jungle line. And then, so I catch a wave, you know, it's one of the best rides of just shredding. And then I paddle back out and I look, and all of a sudden it was a double rainbow over the jungle, completely formed perfectly. Right.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, oh my God, I'm sitting there, and I paddle out again. And then I'm looking toward the sun, and I'm just like slowly just taking it all in. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, it can't even get any better than this. And I look back over to the rainbows, and it become a triple. And I've only seen this a few times in my life, but it was a triple rainbow, fully landed on both sides with the color gradations between them, you know. And then I just, like, all of a sudden it hit me. It was like, usually you would have someone to say, oh my God, isn't this amazing? Like your friend or somebody who's there you could share it with. And it was like, this is just for me, you know? And it was like, all of a sudden, all the energy went inward. And when I thought it was just for me, it went into my heart. And then I literally exploded out of my body. And I was way up in the sky looking down at myself. I was literally like just a field of awareness up in the sky, looking down at my person sitting on the surfboard in the ocean. And then boom, I'm back in my body looking up. And then I went out again, boom, I'm back out and I'm looking down. And so when I came back, it blew my mind. And I just had like this communion with nature, with spirit, with everything. I paddle in and I was so overwhelmed with energy that I'm holding myself, rolling on the sand, and I'm laughing so hard, like bliss laugh, to where I can't even catch my breath and I'm streaming tears and I'm just laughing. And this goes on for like 20 minutes of like hysterical, like completely blown out of my mind, you know. And as I was, you know, in that experience, all of these realizations were coming to me. It was like that the whole universe was alive and awake as me, as each one of us, but that I was an expression of nature, and nature was enjoying being me and seeing through my POV, my point of view, my perspective. And I realized my place as a child of the universe. And it was so now it's like dark, and I paddle across the river mouth, and I'm running home with the surfboard down a dirt road for like a mile. I had so much energy. I had to like sprint back to my like little place, and I get there and I'm just sitting on the bed, and just like all this stuff comes flooding in, and I'm just meditating, but I'm just in complete bliss with this, you know, this most remarkable experience. And I think that, you know, in the Buddhist tradition, they call that satori. And it's when something hits you so hard, like a beautiful scene in nature or something, where you're so absorbed in it that it takes you out of your body and you have communion with all that is. And so I know that it was the stillness and the quiet and that prepared me, because I maybe could have seen that, but if I wasn't in the right state, I wouldn't have had the same experience. So I know that wasn't quite like sitting in meditation, having that experience, but I feel like, you know, doing the meditation practice, it starts to, as you get quieter, it opens you up to start seeing the enchantment of life, because the magic is everywhere, but we have a blind eye when we're too noisy.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it really, it allows you to start to see things as they truly are, because all of life is a miracle. We are living miracles right now, and we have everything to be grateful and blissful about in any given moment. And I know that's a strong statement, because a lot of people are going through a lot of suffering and misery, but 90% of that stuff is self-induced. And, you know, even when, like, you know, someone that we love has an accident or dies or something happens, you know, when we have uncertainty, why did this happen? Instead of going into fear, doubt, and negativity and making it a terrible experience, we go into trust and we say, well, we don't understand everything. You know, there's an infinite intelligence beyond us. The soul is permanent. The soul is untouched by the life drama. Nothing can add to your soul. Nothing can take away from it. So even though we're here in the mind body, and the mind bodies are coming and going, because all of us die at some point, and everything around us is coming and going, that it's part of life. And even if we can't understand it, we have to stay in the flow of trust, because that keeps us open to the great blessing of energy that supports us to be at the highest experience. We say the crest of the wave is like the Christ, the crest or the Christ consciousness. It's the, when we don't even, that's not even a religious term for me as much as it's a spiritual understanding of being at the peak of human experience, having a HD human experience, a human divine experience.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful, man. All right. Well, you know, I always have one last question I like to ask, but before I get there, I just wanted to thank you so much, not just for, you know, being on the podcast. You know, that's always, you know, a great treat to get to spend time with you, but just thank you so much for all the work that you do on yourself so that you can be the best you and put that out into the world. Thank you for everything you do to make the world a better place by helping others realize what they can tap into when they really get quiet with themselves. So thank you, thank you, thank you, brother. Love you. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
All right. So last question, we're going to get wild here. So I always like to ask us, you know, knowing that we all have limitless potential and we can create whatever kind of life we want, what does it mean to you to maximize your human potential?
Yes. So when my mind and heart are in coherence and I'm able to show up with the highest expression of what I feel inside of myself without any inner resistance, and I just get to shine forth and just be a being of light and bliss. And that to me is the peak pinnacle experience. And so, some people might think, okay, I want a superpower, I want to be able to do this or that or whatever. But even within the limitations of being a human subject to the laws of physics and the different things around us, and now, of course, yogis have, attained to a state of inner ability where it goes beyond. And there are these different ability to call siddhis and different powers of the psyche and consciousness. But I feel like, a lot of people aren't aware that there's maybe different stages of enlightenment, and we kind of think of the experience of being the Godhead, of being the being who is all knowing, all powerful, everywhere present, as this is like the ultimate enlightenment, and even beyond that. But the lesser enlightenment of really waking up to being the child of God, not necessarily the ultimate power, but to be a true child of God. And so to be able to be a unique individual personality who's showing up in the full expression. This, this is really a beautiful thing that I would love to attain to. And then, maybe stepping stones get to the, the top. Yeah. But, yeah.
That's awesome. All right. Well, thank you again so much for being here. Thanks for sharing with our listeners so much of your wisdom. I know we could probably do 20, 30, maybe 100 different podcast episodes just with all your knowledge. So thank you, for sharing that. And until next time, thank you everyone for joining us today on the Heavily Meditated podcast. And we will look forward to seeing you on the next one.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Scott. Much love, brother. And thank you everyone out there for your time and listening. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you so much for joining us today on this episode of the Heavily Meditated podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast and share it with the people you love most. And if you want to learn more about how you can program your mind, unlock your unlimited potential, and create the life you really want, then check out the Heavily Meditated Mentorship at heavilymeditated.com/mentorship. Until next time, thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you on the next episode of the Heavily Meditated podcast.